right, we're going to begin this meeting, and I'm going to start with an apology. We had to use my computer.
Use the mic or that thing.
We're having to use my computer, and last night it crashed in an inappropriate time. So we're hoping that it'll last for us, and if not, just hang tight. It takes 5 minutes and it'll restart.
You guys can hear?
Can everybody hear?
Yeah.
All right. All right. First of all, thank you all for coming. This is an informational that really is just to give you some information about some things that we're thinking about. We're collecting feedback. We're going to take that feedback. The select board will take that feedback, and then we'll finalize some warrant items. What we're presenting tonight are things that we're considering putting on warrant items, but they are not warrant items at this point in time. We want your feedback on those. One of the things, the first thing we'll talk about is ordinance, some of the specific changes that we're proposing. The ordinance committee has worked on this for a long time. Then we have some information from some committees that are considering putting together some things for ordinances and want input on that. So again, these are not warrant items. These are all, we want your input before we make final decisions on those. If we don't have enough packets, everything that you have right now is available on our website, thanks to April. And we're hoping at the end of the meeting, if you don't need all those copies, let us have them back, because we're going to have the same exact presentation on Thursday. It is not a continuation. It could look very different depending on who's here, but basically our plan is to present the same information on Thursday.
Being recorded, so.
And it is being recorded, so if you want to review anything that was said, just know that it is on record. And I think the only one that we have on Zoom right now is Jeff. Others are welcome. We had the link.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we're going to begin with the ordinances, and I'm going to let Lisa take over.
I have a question. So when you make the warrant items, is that going to be part of the annual town meeting?
Yes, these are all for our town meeting. Yes, yes.
You've got a deadline of the end of June.
Exactly. That's just, you know, the ordinance committee worked a long time on these, and they were by lawyers and whatnot, and so this is a first chance that we have that we can present these to people. And but we got to do this pretty quickly because they will be on this year's warrant. Yep. Richard?
Who was on the ordinance committee?
Myself, John Henderson, Gary Richardson, Chris, I just saw Chris come in. There he is. Chris
Malleus.
I asked you that the other day, how to say it. Brent Rainey, Jim Cromwell, who am I forgetting? Ron Stubbe, my secretary, my minute taker, Davies Allen. Am I forgetting anybody?
Ralph.
Oh, Ralph Jacobs.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, first I want to thank my committee members. It was a long and arduous process going through these ordinances, amendments, and new ordinances this year. Some of them were prompted by things that happened in our community that we needed help with, and others were from the state, that we had to change our ordinances or create a new ordinance to mirror what the state was doing with affordable housing. So what we're going to do is go through our ordinances that we have presented. That's what's in the packet there. And then after that, we'll discuss the warrant items that we want input on. As Donna said, the ordinances are also on the website, so people can read them. This is being recorded, so you can watch it again. And also, I'd like to say that after you leave here today, if you think of something or have a question, just email me, probably the best way, SelectBoard3. Probably the best way to communicate with us with this, because it's a lot to take in one night, which is why we're doing this also. So we don't have to do too much explaining at the town meeting. Okay, so the first ordinance we're gonna go over is the state housing legislation, LD 2003. And if you don't mind, John, there's a cover letter that Ralph Jacobs wrote very nicely that kind of summarizes LD 2003 and explains it, I guess, in lay terms for you to understand. It's complicated, and it's about creating affordable housing in the state of Maine. So everybody had to do this. Unfortunately, it's probably still a work in progress with the state as well, but John, is there anything that you want to say in particular about this ordinance? The ordinance, the LD 2003 ordinance started with the planning board, and then when the ordinance review committee started up, we took it over and quickly realized that it belonged back with the planning board. Mostly because of the time. It was very labor intensive to kind of understand all of this and get it into a format, and there was a lot of work that went into it. So the planning board kind of took it back and dealt with it, and then we sat with it, the ordinance review committee sat with it before we came here. So I'll be honest, I'm less familiar with it than probably the planning board and John. So is there anything that you think, other than the summary here, needs to be said about LD 2003? John?
Yeah, let me, let's just come up here. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay. Yeah, my name's John. I was on the ordinance committee, also on the planning board. And as Lisa said, LD 2003 started to be discussed with the planning board, then went to the ordinance committee briefly, and then went back to the planning board. I volunteered to take a stab at drafting the ordinance, and then Ralph Jacobs and I worked on it together. So what you have is our product that went through the planning board. I've forgotten how many, but we had several meetings. There were a couple of controversial issues, but for the most part, what you have in front of you was adopted and recommended for adoption by the planning board. The bottom line is, to put it as simply as I can, the state mandated, or the state passed a law 2 years ago, and they mandated that every city pass an ordinance like the one that we have, implementing this new statute. As Lisa said, the purpose of the statute is to increase the density allowances for development in Maine, with a focus on creating more affordable housing. We all have personal opinions about whether this is a good statute or not, but putting those aside for a moment, we're obligated to pass an ordinance implementing the statute. So that's what this does. And, you know, we've been through it, and Gary's been a significant part of that process. And the bottom line is, it's probably not going to change a whole lot for us, because it really is focused more on high density, already cosmopolitan areas like Portland, or some of the other cities. It doesn't really play well in rural Maine. We got plenty of land. We have a fair percentage of affordable housing already. We don't need to increase the density on our property in order to generate housing. What we need are more people to build housing. And this statute doesn't do anything like that. But the point is, it's really probably not going to have much impact on us. And Ralph put together a nice summary, which is in the materials that you should have. The statute is there. I'm happy to try to answer any questions that folks have. But I'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Does anybody have any questions on this ordinance?
Just a comment, one of the things that we're seeing from the Helping Hands point of view is that we have a lot of substandard units on this island that aren't properly insulated. We're spending thousands of dollars supporting these people that are living in these poor constructed buildings. And, to me, something should be said about, in this ordinance, about the construction type requirements for, multiple units or even single units, because it's, if you would put all of the poorly constructed properties into one unit, one area, you would call it a slum area. So, it's, to me, we have to have some requirements that talk about what people are living in, and what people own that they're renting out to those poor people that don't, have the means to be renting something more expensive.
There is, just an aside, the name of the organization out of Booth Bay escapes me. But there's a group that wants to work with Westport on helping people fix up their homes. It's a volunteer network, I can't remember the name of it. We're looking to have somebody come and do a presentation to us because they want to work with people in Westport. So it would give people the ability to apply for help for fixing up things on their homes and things like that. I mean, I know it's not what you're saying, but we're conscious of that as well.
But, it's got to be the owners that have to be involved in the process. The renters are the ones that are suffering. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yes, I think we have something like 51 trailers right now on the island. I think that was the latest data that we had.
Okay, so if there's no questions, and like I said, you take your reading material home and read it, and you have questions, just email me going forward, that's fine.
Yep, I'm reading this a few times, and so maybe Sean can summarize this and maybe you can. Is there an easy way to explain the difference between additional dwelling units and accessory dwelling units? And that way, if you can tell me that, then I can pass the quiz here at the end of the day.
And
I'd like to be able to get this in my head.
repeat the question first, so that everybody hears what the question was.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, the question is, what's the difference between an accessory dwelling unit and an additional dwelling unit?
I know it's written down here, but I just want to see the concise way of explaining it.
Yep. The short answer is, there really isn't. They're treated differently in the statute, but basically it's taking a dwelling unit of whatever size or configuration and adding it to whatever you have there. You can call it accessory, you can call it additional. The criteria, the definitional criteria are basically the same. You can, if I'm remembering this correctly, you can create an additional and an accessory dwelling unit inside what you already have. You can add to what you already have, or you can build a separate structure to add what you already have. All three of those things are both additional dwelling unit and accessory. What the statute does is it creates, and this is my sort of comment, they're making sausage when they make this statute.
Appreciate that.
And I think there was one legislature wanted to do it this way, and another legislature wanted to do it that way, and they decided to do it both ways, and just you know, it's a little bit of.
It's not clear, yeah.
But the statute treats them differently. There's one section that talks about additional dwelling units. That's section A in the statute, 4364A. There's a separate section that talks about accessory dwelling units. And boiling it down, the difference is with respect to 4364B, I think it is, accessory dwelling units. You can add more units than you could under additional, but kind of the trick is you can't do both. So, sorry, but I guess to answer your question, there ain't no difference, that we're saying, but the statute treats them differently. So, if you're looking at what we call the explainer that Ralph prepared, the last section 6, basic rules for accessory dwelling units. Let me just point out one of the things it says here. Outside the shoreland zone, because of how the state law requires Westport to change its zoning laws, the proposed ordinance says that landowners would now be able to build another dwelling unit that met the size limitations for accessory dwelling units, but without having to meet the minimum lot size for dwelling unit requirements. So hear what I'm saying, right? If under that section, if somebody wants to build an accessory dwelling unit outside the shoreland zone, the shoreland zone restrictions still apply, nothing changes that. But if it's outside the shoreland zone, this would allow greater flexibility to build what they want, and they would not have to meet that minimum lot size for dwelling unit. That minimum lot size for dwelling unit permit does apply if it's an additional dwelling unit under section A. Okay, so.
It's pretty clear to us, yeah.
Clear as mud.
Thank you.
It's interesting, though, is that in both situations, that it must be at least 190 square feet as an accessory, but it can't be more than 850.
Pretty small.
Right, yeah, and that's a good point, thank you for
Right.
bringing that out.
It's the size of someone.
Yeah.
The size of the accessory dwelling unit is prescribed, it's obviously small.
That's a big difference between the two.
Yeah, thank you, Richard.
And,
Other questions?
Nobody else? Okay, let's go on. Nuisance ordinance. Okay. This was interesting. It was prompted by an ongoing issue in a neighborhood on the island that had complaints over years. And originally we approached this as doing a junkyard ordinance. We couldn't, according to MMA, we couldn't legislate to not allow junkyards. The state has a statute that we sort of worked on this year for this property in terms of defining a junkyard. But I guess what we found as a committee was that was sort of didn't encompass everything that we kind of needed it to cover. So we decided to go with a nuisance ordinance and put in our own set of what we consider to be public nuisances affecting health and safety. This is a touchy subject, and I'm not gonna lie, it's not easy to deal with. And it's certainly not our intention to go around and try to make every single property on the island perfect and beautiful. This is when it impacts other people. This one property was bordering a neighbor. The neighbor's well was very close to this person's property with all their junk, and there was also an aquifer in the back of the house. So when it impacts other people is when, you know, we want to be able to have something that we can work off of. And one of the things that we thought was important, was putting into this, ordinance, the fact that we need at least 2 people to complain about this property. It's not gonna be somebody gets, you know, mad at their neighbor and decides they wanna, you know, file a complaint. So we thought that was important. I can't think of anything else. Did anybody have a chance to look at it? Does anybody have any questions about it? Yeah, Jason?
I'm most concerned about 3F, the combination of, you know, large limb piles. You know, because basically I've got a limb pile that I'm growing over the next few months that I will then burn at some point in time. I don't want to have to bring it in 15 days when it's might not be a good season to do that. You know, that just seems like it's gonna make people do bad things, you know, trying to start fires very often instead of more control during the winter season with, you know, bigger batches per se.
So what part of it are you most,
Is it 15 days?
Large limb piles.
sorry?
3F, large limb piles.
Right. Oh, large limb piles.
That concerns me, because we all have trees that come down, and all have lots of limbs at times.
Well, I think we put a lot of wording in here to give us, there's gonna be a level of discretion, right, with this. And, you know, if we get a complaint and the code enforcement officer goes out and checks it out, he's gonna use his discretion to say whether it's, you know, and if nobody's files a complaint against your limb pile, it's not like we're gonna go around policing people and looking for it. It's really just a vehicle. If somebody other than the homeowner has a concern, that it can be addressed.
I just have concerns, if the code enforcement officer doesn't like me for some reason, then I could be in trouble. And I think that goes more than it's me, I think that's, you know.
That's why it takes 2 people, not just Gary not liking it.
You're thinking, that seems like a natural effect of living here with the land of trees. Yeah.
Okay.
So that question, would that be, could be 2 people standing, something like some standing, you know, immediate neighbors, or could be any random person in the lodge to make?
It doesn't, yeah, it doesn't have to be,
It seems like the neighbors would be impacted more so than anybody else, but you're thinking about something that has some sort of standing, instead of just a person just going by and just generally saying, I like the looks of that place, they can complain. It didn't say residents?
oh yeah, no, it's, written complaint. If any town official submits a written complaint to the code enforcement officer, or 2 or more residents file a written complaint with the town clerk. And again, this is, it's not about, you know, hunting down all these like less than, it's really just, you have to, the judgment has to be whether this is a danger to, you know, for fire or polluting the ground, with, you know, the water supply, with what's sitting on top of the property. It's gonna be a judgment call, but we didn't have this specific wording to be able to act on it. It's not an easy subject by any stretch, but, you know, the people that are living around those people, you know, have rights as well. And I think when it impacts your property, you should be able to have some way of taking care of that.
I would just ask that we strike the large limb piles from the ordinance.
I will make that note.
Thank you.
No problem.
Linda would love that.
Would love that.
Just make me clean up the area.
See? Okay,
So I have a question.
yeah.
I'm in the same opinion as Jason in terms of having limbs that come down, that sort of thing. Does this
procedure change our appeals process? Is it still Board of Appeals that will continue in the same way? If there's a complaint?
Repeat your question, would you like the? We're recording this, and I don't think your voice is being heard.
Given the complaint that you made, do we have the same procedure for establishing an appeal? If that is happening, does this affect the appeal process? These new.
The way we have it written, the select board is going to hear any consideration of complaints. Okay, and then it goes to, I don't think it's going to go to the Board of Appeals, it's going to go directly to the Superior Court or District Court, if it gets to that point. This is a standalone ordinance, so it's not under our building code ordinance, which is that whole appeals process at the end of that.
So that sounds very much related to that last hearing we had, public hearing, where this was up. There was a complaint about not having a local judge, and so we had to go to the state level to get a judgment made. And it seems that a lot of these citizens feel that we might things to be handled locally, rather than having to deal with some higher level that we know nothing about. Or like that, consider, does that be considered in this manifestation that
Certainly something we can document. I know there was an issue a few months ago about that, yeah.
So, but it is the hearing procedure would be the select board.
Yeah.
Then after the select board, it would go to.
So we're beginning the county with the appeals board.
Well, yeah.
We'll definitely document that and talk about that.
Can everybody hear me all right? That's obviously a really important point and something that was discussed in the ordinance committee and section 7, I think, is probably the most important part of the ordinance that talks about the process. And the idea was, as you say, we're a community and we're going to work it out among ourselves. And the vehicle that, the real focal point of working it out was if the select board finds that it is a nuisance, and again, there's an element of discretion there, and I think odds are, in many cases, they're not going to find that there's a nuisance, but if they do, then they propose the terms and conditions of the consent agreement, and go through a process of trying to work it out with the neighbor, just as the select board has in the particular case that got in front of them now. I mean, Donna has spent, every time I go to a meeting, she's got to report the time that she spent with a particular landowner working this out. Didn't go to court, she could have, they could have made some findings, they could have taken it to court, but that's not what they did, they're trying to work it out. So, at least from my perspective, for what it's worth, I thought this section 7 was probably the most important, that is, if a nuisance is found, then there's a really concerted effort to work it out. I mean, it could be the landowner, the homeowner is sick, isn't able to do whatever needs to be done, the trash out, what have maybe, and so there's always a story behind everything. So I think that's really the focal point. The focal point isn't, to take legal action. The focal point is try to work something out. But at the end of the day, you know, if we have a situation like we had, I forget the name of the road, you know, there's legal action that's available, but that's not the first step, that's like the last. So.
And I would say there are several instances since I've been here where, you know, we have tried to work it out rather than go to court or anything else. And we work hard to make sure that we don't take it to court, because no telling whether we'd win anyway. It's a lot of money out of the town's pocketbook to do that. So I think in every case, we try to do that. But there is, if we can't, then there's got to be someplace else where we can go. When you know, somebody says, no, I'm not going to do this, and we've got our hands tied, we have to have some other option. So that's why that's written that way.
And I'll just add, the way this came to the ordinance committee was, you know, we've got this situation, as like Board said, I'm sorry. Talking back to people, I don't want to do that. You know, it came to the ordinance committee saying, the select board saying, hey, we've got this situation we're trying to work with, and we don't really have a process or framework to handle this. The way they get it is, you or me are calling them every couple of days saying, what are you going to do about this? You know, haranguing them and saying, do something, you're in charge, do something, we got this mess. So they said, it'd be better if we had a process. Somebody gets two people to file a claim or to say there's a problem. It goes to the select board, there's a process. The person makes a presentation, you hear the other side of it, and then you try to work it out. So there's a kind of a process. And that's really what this, as far as my perspective, again, one person, whether this is a process to do in a much more, let's say, fair and organized way than what it is now. It's just kind of, you know, somebody who complains a lot, gets their attention and they do something, it's kind of sloppy. That's my impression.
Hopefully we never have to use it. Any other questions before we move on? Okay. Next one's, should be a little easier. Okay, now we're going to the building code ordinance where we have some amendments. The first one has to do with a setback. It's pretty simple. Basically, it's a paragraph that says, prior to construction for all buildings within 10 feet of a setback line, the code enforcement officer has to go and sign off on the footings to make sure that they're not beyond the setback line. This came out of an incident on the island, and we thought that it would be helpful to avoid the problems of people not following what they're supposed to do, or what you tell them they're supposed to do, and then finding out later that you know, they did something, oops, oh, you know, whatever the reason is. So they have to be checked. If you're building a house in the middle of 20 acres, then no. You know, we'll find out eventually if your plans aren't jiving with. But this is only because if it's encroaching on the setback and they've built something, it's obviously in violation, but you know, to justify tearing down a building and that kind of thing. So this way it avoids that. Any questions? Anybody not understand that? Okay. Access to town roads. Okay, this was another big one that we worked on. And this was something that our road commissioner, Jim Cromwell, had requested. And simply put, it's a permitting process for people who are getting ready to build on their property and they want to put a driveway in. To make sure that the driveway is placed in a way and built correctly in a way that it's not going to impact our town roads. Again, this had come up because we do have an incident where there's a driveway that every winter, it affects our town road, and it's just a way to kind of avoid those problems going forward. So that was that one. That one's going to be an amendment also to the building code. And then definitions, that one's pretty simple as well. It explains it that back in 2017, there were some definitions that were changed or amended, but what happened was the way it was written, we didn't get rid of the old ones. So all this is saying is the planning board had looked over the 2017 amendments and said they're fine the way they are. And can we just strike the old ones? And because we have two sets of definitions right now, and that's not cool. So it's pretty simple. So we'd be getting rid of what was done in 2017, would just be getting rid of the old ones that were in the ordinance. Okay. Any questions on that? Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
I just had one comment with regards to geometry.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that, I don't know where I saw, but there's some sort of safety rules with regards to visibility in both directions.
Funny you should mention that. This is, see where it says on here, somewhere it's stamped on here, draft. That actually, we met last week and that sort of came up as an issue because we were saying, so this is a work in progress. This is not like 100% yet, but somebody said, well, what happens if somebody has a piece of property and we have these site distances and there's nowhere on this property that this driveway can go that would meet the requirements of this ordinance? Then what do you do? So one of the things we talked about was possibly putting in a language for our variance, because that can obviously happen, where your property is useless if you can't put a driveway in. So that was very astute of you, Richard.
Yeah, because if you've got a problem area, we
Right.
could potentially put a
Right.
35-mile-an-hour speed limit through that area, or 25.
And the thing is, we have the most conscientious road commissioner you could find, and he's, you know, he wants to work with people, and he wants to make everybody happy, but he mostly wants to protect our roads. So he's gonna be, you know, front and center on, you know, making sure that it's as safe as it possibly could be.
I've heard people's concerns about this more regulation. You all know me, you know what I like regulation. Trying to do is protect the taxpayers from having to do constant maintenance because of a private driveway that wasn't installed correctly. You know, save on glass and some lead.
Right.
So he's saying we pay. I don't like that. I'm not looking to limit anybody from doing whatever they want to do. I just want to do it in a reasonable manner. And that's all I'm trying to accomplish here. I'm not trying to limit anybody from doing anything.
Right.
I just don't want the taxpayers to have to pay for a constant problem as I'm experiencing from the same driveway, because it's ridiculous. This driveway is ridiculous. Never should have been allowed, but there was no ordinance, and I'm against having an ordinance if you ain't got some way to enforce it.
Right.
I just don't want to see a replay of what was done. That's the short of it, right there, you know.
Yeah, but, you know, that kind of visual requirement could be easily satisfied by just requiring a speed limit there.
Right, we have no, what I call high-speed roads.
Yeah.
Other than the main road, and that's the state, you know, the state park. And we'll get a driveway, I guarantee you. One way or the other, there's gotta be a spot.
Yeah.
Most roads around here are 25, so that'd be 250 feet each way.
Yeah.
Sometimes cutting the wind makes you compliant.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just did the environmental considerations section. Does this apply to existing driveways too?
No, okay, no, we can't, there's no way we can go back, because if it did,
Oh, no.
I'd be driving.
I'm just saying, if I need permission to go cut a tree that's in front of my driveway, that's gonna fall over, it just seems like it's, and I gotta talk to you before I try to put that tree, it seems like, scary.
No, it's just logic, you know, it's just. Yeah, it's not meant to be restrictive.
Right.
Other than, you know, I've got a lot of experience in doing this stuff. Look, you may want to driveway here, move it over here, there's more benefits to putting it over here, to talking to people and meeting with people and saying, you know, we'll find a way to do this, make this happen.
But so before they put the driveway in, they're gonna meet with you, you're gonna go over all the trees, you're gonna get rid of the trucks and stuff?
Yeah, I don't care, if they cut every tree they got.
Well, but it says here that you can.
Well, I
What
haven't
do you
read.
mean?
Where's
I
it?
don't know.
In the course of
Page
working right away.
21, the second to last
Yeah.
paragraph.
Yeah,
If it's,
That's
if
a
it's a tree in the
public
town
record.
right away.
right,
Yeah, because it's
right.
technically town tree. I'm not gonna say, you can't cut that tree, because it's gonna tip over if you don't. You know, that's just so people don't go out and cut every tree on, in the town right away. You know, that would upset people too. In the opposite direction.
Okay.
That's tree in the right away.
Any other questions for,
Driveway, no, okay. The next couple of amendments that we're gonna go over are, from our harbor master, Ted Christie's here tonight. Thank you for coming, Ted. These are all, suggestions of Ted's. It's pretty, straightforward. I think it removed, you can see where the strikeouts are, what's being taken out. Richard, I know you had a concern
Yeah, both on C and
about,
D.
yeah,
On C, the way that I had laid out that
oh,
mooring area, it went into the navigational waterway. So if it's going to stay that way, then that thing about the Army Corps of Engineers and the Coast Guard has to stay in there. I researched that pretty thoroughly, unless there's been changes in the law.
When I called the Army Corps of Engineers, Jay Clement, who's now retired, he stated they have no authority review process in regards to mooring field whatsoever, they never have. The Coast Guard.
And I called them that.
The Coast Guard, their authority is navigational waterways, and they want to, they have authority if you want to propose to designate an anchorage. And you have to petition them, and you have to,
is it?
so you have to petition with them, to get a specific area, and they would, I tried several times, and kept getting talked around the circle, to get somebody in charge of that, and actually do it. If you get it approved for them, then they will designate a charge as an approved anchorage. They don't call it mooring field. The mooring fields really don't follow the Army Corps, unless they're rental moorings, they charge, they get required to pay them a fee. So I thought that we could strike that from this ordinance here, it doesn't really apply to them. If you want to, I can still follow up again and try and consider it, considered a designated anchorage area, which would be anchors and moorings.
Yeah, because we could just limit it, that mooring area out to the edge of the waterway. And that would save that, you know, get rid of any potential problem with the Coast Guard.
Right.
And then under C, eliminating and shall be limited to one mooring per lot,
indeed.
under D,
Indeed, yeah.
allows the other residents to have more than one mooring. Because like in the first sentence, the one single mooring location, per lot is a requirement. I don't see that it's appropriate to delete that, because that second sentence is written, it would allow a single lot to have multiple moorings.
And you had some comment on that, and hold your mic close, Ted, thank you.
Yeah, well, is that, the way I read that last line is, without access to water, ability to access the water shall be limited to one mooring per lot. So, Ron Cole would be a perfect example where one individual was paying almost all the moorings in that cove for several years, because he had multiple lots he owned. I thought we could strike that from the line that says first come, first served basis, and we also refer to the waterways and harbors ordinance where I have discretion. I can, I can approve, disapprove, approve with conditions, and anyone feels that there was an unfair determination, there's an appeal process for that. It just seems like the potential for one person to say, I have 10 interior lots, I want to take 10 mooring locations right now in the third area. I just thought that would be really unfair, and doesn't really deserve it for people who may, have the potential to have mooring, but if somebody has all the area taken up, and they're gonna be down, somewhere in the very south end, and that's for the mooring location.
And I just feel that sentence should not be deleted.
So what's your concern?
My concern is that other lots could have multiple moorings. It's a modifier of the first sentence, and it should be a modifier of the second sentence from a English perspective.
I guess I'm still not understanding. If somebody has one interior lot, they should have as many moorings as they like in that area.
What?
If someone had multiple lots on the island,
Yeah.
they want to keep it in the mooring in there for all of the lots, that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, in multiple lots, you could have multiple,
One person,
One person. though.
one person.
that's what I'm
Right.
saying. One person has 10 lots, and you'd like to get 10 mooring locations down there for that one person.
He's saying, I guess Ted's kind of taking it away from the connection of the mooring to a lot and saying it's a mooring to a person, and it's gonna be, first come, first serve, and at his discretion.
Because somebody might have an interior lot, but also want to have a sailboat and a motorboat with a mooring, and, without forcing them to buy a second lot. That might be an appropriate thing to do.
Correct, this does allow, I guess, I'm saying, the way that reads somebody would set that would be very simple off the mooring. I think you'd rather have the discretion of the harbor master based on, approval, disapproval with conditions, and what else is happening within that mooring field.
Which seems a lot fairer than somebody that has 100 lots and wants to go take up 100 mooring positions just because they can.
Right, I'm trying to avoid, just kind of looking back at how Ron Cole developed, we took all of the mooring spots.
Interesting.
There's virtually no place for other property would be place for mooring, as they were further out, closer to the channel, so I thought maybe you strike that potential at this location down the road.
How many moorings do we have out there at Wright Landing right now?
There's currently one in the field, approved, I think approved 4, they have not set. No.
No, it
this
is
is the.
Wright Landing.
Yeah.
Wright Landing, yeah.
Well, to me, with those arguments, I would say that we should strike for a single mooring location for that first sentence as well. If somebody wants a mooring for their sailboat and a little yacht.
So what
I
are you
think they're
suggesting?
saying, they're saying that's for adjacent property owners.
Well, it kind of makes sense, because some people who want to have 2 boats, they have a sailboat and a motorboat. And, being able to have that adjacent to their makes some sense.
this is only referring to the ferry landing area, which is designated mooring, it's not around the rest of the island. We have a cove on that, this is specific to the ferry landing. And the adjacent area is designated for mooring area. We're trying to get personal effect. First preference is shore property versus, traditional shore property is always been, at least in grade, the minimum one mooring for the shore property. So you try and, when I was proving some of these moorings, I'm trying to leave the room for these shorefront property owners also the mooring if they so choose, so not, so they're not up there. And it may, if it fills up to a fair amount, the state has some prime locations, and they consider for additional mooring that if they're shorefront property owner design mooring for its property, that they may have to have one relocated to accommodate for that. I feel bad if more is set up in front of someone's shore property, all of a sudden they get no place to put the water for themselves. So trying to strike a balance.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Ted. Okay, and again, this is all input. We'll meet about this, and then it is presented in front of the entire town, and you all either agree or not agree to what the final outcome is. Thank you, Ted.
Okay, so the next one is amendments to right landing and adjacent town property use ordinance. These are relatively straightforward as well. There's a whole section about, I don't know if you want to talk about this, April, renting the area, the facility for, that whole section was kind of struck, and I believe, yeah, if you want to, because April was sort of getting in the background of this area.
Well, last summer, Dee and I were in the office, and someone came in to ask about a day right in. And Dee and I were both like, what? We've never heard of that. And I think what we told them is, well, it's a public area, you can use it, if you want to have a little, they wanted to do like a family barbecue. Well, I said, just use it, it's like a park. We can't really reserve it for you, we can't carve out parking for you because it's public and people who fish and people who vote, people use it for their living. So the parking area can't be reserved, but you can use it. So that got me thinking about it, and then sometime later, I was reading through our current town rental agreement to try to make sure that was up to snuff. For some reason, there was some concern, I had to run that by the lawyers. And I noticed in there that it said something about, there was a checkbox for renting the right landing that I hadn't noticed before. And then I read the ordinance, and I was like, this doesn't really line up with the rental agreement, and I sent it over to the attorney, and they're like, yeah, there's X, Y, and Z problems, you think you should split them all out and write different rental agreements for each thing, and, they raised some concerns and conflict with the ordinance, and so at this point, I thought it would be easier to sort of strike out specifics. So the ordinance, if you read that section Q, lays out like fees and percentages and different types of activities that can happen there. And instead just keep the sentence in that the select board may develop regulations and permit system for use. And then we can work on that and come up with something that makes sense for today. If there's a demand, and I'm just curious because Phoebe had no memory of anyone ever renting it. I've never experienced anyone except for that one person, so.
Lived in a wedding.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 years in Maryville, out there, I don't know, I
Yeah.
don't think there was any paperwork.
Did you rent it?
I
Yeah.
don't think so.
It's kind of a complicated process to like rent a park like that. It's a little different than renting a building. It's sort of more of a permit process. So it just would take a little bit of research to kind of put this together. So we're trying to give ourselves a little breathing room to do it right. If folks feel
If there's a need, right. Anybody have any questions on that? There's another.
I had just included that portion in there when I wrote this in for the first time, is that trying to get away from having two organizations wanting it at the same time. And that's why I had put that in there. Well, just avoid conflict,
Right.
you know. When there's a fishing tournament and somebody's having a wedding, you don't want those two combined. So that's just a thought.
Do we have fishing tournaments? Have we had fishing tournaments?
No, we haven't had
No.
fishing tournaments. You know, that's-
And only one wedding.
We've had weddings,
Yeah.
and we've had other activities going on down there.
Well, the
And
nice
it
thing
certainly
is-
could be happening at the same time.
Yeah, the nice thing is we have an active, very up-to-date calendar that April keeps, and, so hopefully somebody would check that calendar first, or if they called April, she'd be able to say.
Yeah, you'd be able to say.
Yeah, because WCA, I know, has, bands come down there and whatnot, but it is on the calendar
I
typically.
think eventually some kind of permit system is what the attorney was recommending, so when we have a little breathing room, maybe over the summer and the fall, we can start crafting that stuff, but it's just a little bit of a lift to get done, so.
Stay tuned for next year. All right, anything on that?
No, there's,
The definitions?
yeah, there's definitions, there's a new, but I already went over that with the,
Yeah, there's,
explainer, right?
it's several.
Several.
Ordinances, so I have included it in the building, because, well, it's a long story, the way it has to get done.
Right.
Warrant, but,
So this-
we're gonna have to do it for several, any ordinance that touch on land use, Ruth Nelson actually wrote all these definitions.
Oh.
So that they would all, I guess in the past, they didn't all coordinate, and there were conflicts, so she had written them to be consistent throughout. So we just have to word the warrant correctly, so we strike the old ones and put the new ones in. So I don't know how that's gonna look with the warrant, it's gonna be more paperwork, but, we'll get it done.
Okay, that's it for ordinances.
All right, we have, two other pieces of paper here for you. One is the proposed town hall projects, and Jeff, did you want to talk about this, or you want me to talk about it? I don't see him there. Basically, the town hall has several projects that, some pretty, big projects that'll cost. And, so they wanted to just, sort of get some feedback from you. There's some things that have to happen, but other things that are options. And so this list, just really calls out some of the things. For example, the ADA, the ramp needs to be replaced, and that is actually, you know, we're required by law to have that ramp. Just other things, as you've probably seen, trying to open and shut the door, there's, rot that's happening. We've talked about, as we're looking at using this for different purposes, such as a heating or a cooling place. This, room right here, where you see the door, we discovered that actually it's flush with the stage, but actually the floor is down here with the rest of the floor. So we could actually put in a wheelchair accessible bathroom right there, because in the back of that is where the bathrooms are. So you could actually, without a lot of trouble, without having to restructure anything, you could actually just open that up right there, and you'd have a bathroom that's accessible for anybody that needed it to have that space. So there are several things.
Also, I've been doing a little work on that with I've gotten a couple of estimates for the ramps. Obviously, with the ramp, it's an aesthetic thing because it's a historic building, so, you know, taking that into consideration. But I have that, and I've been talking to heating companies about a new system. Our boiler is kind of limping along, and I've been working with Efficiency Maine and people who are accredited with Efficiency Maine to obviously recoup some of the money for this, and I'm going to be looking into energy efficiency grants for this building as well. But I guess we still have to, you know, ask permission for that in the warrant as well, applying for grants for this. So it's not like we're doing we want to do all this work and not, look for funding elsewhere. It's definitely out there, especially with energy efficiency. So I'm in the process of that. One of the last person I met with suggested we do an energy audit. And there's auditors on the Efficiency Maine site that can come in and they'll just give you a whole, breakdown of the building and what needs to be done. But the ramp to me is like number one, because that ramp is not compliant, and I've seen people not in wheelchairs struggle to walk up that ramp. So that's kind of a must to do. And then the heating, obviously, that's going to be a work in progress, and the bathroom and sort of getting it up. In a perfect world, we could have solar panels and, there's all kinds of things. This, to me, again, my opinion, this building is the heart of the town, and we have it, on the historic register, and, and it gets used, but it's hurting. It needs a little TLC. Part of this work, the front of the building needs to be worked and painted. So that's something that's going to be hopefully put out to bid as well.
And basically what we're doing here is we're just letting you know some of the issues that are here. There is some money in the capital reserve account, as you can see, 17,000. The town hall committee will probably be putting some warrant items up, and we want your input on that. And then, as Lisa said, we're also looking for grants for some of these things. So basically, we wanted to present so that all of you know up front, if you see it on a warrant item, it's like this is sort of what we're thinking. Jason?
Basically, in my opinion, EMA director, we don't really have a good heating, warming and cooling shelter spot. This building is the best potential for it. If we had both, cooling, which we don't have today, which we haven't seen in town meeting. We also don't have an ADA compliant bathroom. So, right now we use the fire station, which is okay if people are mobile and can go up the stairs.
Right.
Ideally we kind of need a shower, we need bathrooms that are all ADA compliant. So we can put, this is the best spot we have to be able to put cots in and get people to be able to shelter if there's an emergency or there's an issue where we need to shelter a bunch of people. This would be it. Like, we definitely need heating, cooling, and
Right. So the heating, cooling would be something, would be one.
Yeah.
And emergency power for that.
Yep. Right. Exactly. Yeah.
You hoping to bring
Mary Ellen?
any one of these things to town meeting this year, or is this a multi-year effort here, what you just laid out?
The town hall committee will have to decide what it wants to do, and we'll present to the board, and we'll look at it, and then again, it gets all presented, and it could be that if they present everything, that the town says, nope, we're gonna just take what's priority, and for me, what's priority is what we legally have to deal with, which is the ADA compliant issues.
Yeah, because we use the building for voting,
For
as a
voting.
polling place, and yeah.
So we have, that law's been around since, I think, 1990 or something like that.
I think it was passed in '92, but whether or not the town committee recommends that, I would like to recommend it to the select board that we get the ramp.
No, we're doing the ramp for sure. That's a definite.
Okay,
The ramp,
that's
for sure.
Way over.
Yeah.
That.
The other parts, you're probably right. It's probably gonna be, especially
Multi-year.
with grants involved, you have to get prices and know what it's gonna cost you, and then applying for the grants and that kind of thing. So, yeah, it's gonna be expensive.
Yeah.
I got just one quote I got for the bathroom. This guy did everything, master plumber, master whatever. So I think the bathroom, he quoted 16,000, and we were looking at a heat pump that hooks up to our ductwork currently. So it would be a unit that's kind of back where our boiler is now. And I think that was like, I want to say like 32,000 or something like that. But that was just won't quote, I'm just, just throwing numbers out there, but like I said, probably the next thing I would do is probably do an energy audit on the building, and then, kind of work from there. So yeah, this isn't gonna happen quickly for sure, but yeah.
Appreciate everybody's hard work.
Yeah, but you should expect to see some warrant items, either asking for permission to go after money, or, could be that they ask for, specific amounts of money. So, but basically, we want to share, get input from you, any thoughts or whatever that you have. And Jason, I appreciate your comment about the heating and cooling center, because it is an issue, and we've had too many storms around here lately that, it's a big issue. All right, last on our list.
And before you go on.
Yep.
It sounds like you do have some good numbers already to put into warrants.
Oh, we will put numbers into warrants, yeah.
It sounds like you got some good numbers.
Whenever we can, yeah. For some, it'll be asking for grants. It may be, we have to say that we're asking for X number of dollars to do whatever, but we didn't want this to be a surprise for anybody, and we wanted, people to know, and just be upfront about this. So last on our list is, the 2025 road plan, and,
Well, before you go on to
yeah, I'm
other
sorry.
hall,
Yeah.
town hall project,
oh, yes, I
you know,
forgot,
we've
yes.
got 3 bids now. The last one that came in was
3 bids for
exactly
what?
10,000.
3 bids for what?
What?
3 bids for what?
The
3
right,
bids for what?
For doing the roof on the Right House.
Right, people didn't hear that.
Re-roofing.
Yep.
We had one at 10,584, I think, and then another one at $10,015. And then this last one we got today is 10,000, which is exactly what we got approved in the warrant. So, you know, it's up to you folks just to,
do you,
select the type of roofing you want and
do you want to talk about tree work?
what.
The tree work
Yeah,
that you
there's
had
also tree work.
brought to us, at a board meeting about a month ago?
Oh,
Mike,
about
you-
taking down the
Yeah.
tall trees.
Yeah,
Yeah, the post-like trees, we should probably be considering, coming down and reforesting it with smaller trees on that point. Because we've had, well, right now, there's 2 more that have just come down.
Wow.
So, it's a potential for ruining the 2 sheds back there and also the new roof.
yeah, right, yeah.
So we gotta be considering that and as something for the future. And there's a fellow down the road that does tree removal. I could get him to give us an estimate.
Yeah, I know we have several people actually on the island that do this.
Yeah,
Yeah, and actually, I'm glad Gary's here, because when you had mentioned that, I forgot that, because I live also in an area where I can't cut down trees by the water. And those are very close to the water, so we'd have to definitely involve, Gary in that to make sure that whatever gets done, when the trees fall down naturally, then, it's sort of out of everybody's hands. But I knew there were 2 trees down, one on either side of the, there are 2 sheds in the back behind the house there. Both sides, it's like one hit just a little bit.
Yeah, one hit
It
just a
dented
little bit.
something, but really lucky with that, so,
Appreciate this discussion, I know it's not part of the agenda, but I'd like to be able to visit the property with Richard and others. I'm on the Friends of Westport Island History, so we're at the History Center all the time, so that's a beautiful spot, that's our kind of home. So I'd like to walk that property when it's the right time, to make sure that we're doing the right thing down there.
Yeah.
Because it's a stunning piece of property, I realize it's it can be a dangerous piece of property during a storm, but I'd like to talk with you and bring some other folks into the conversation.
great idea, yeah. And I just want to clarify that the roof issue that, that Richard's talking about, that has already been approved on last year's warrant. So it's not something that we're going to be asking for this year. It has been approved, he's been working on getting some bids, and he just got the 3rd one in today. So, that's not money that will be out for this coming year. That's already, earmarked for, for the town landing here. All right, now last on the list, I think, is a road plan, and, would you like to come up and talk a little bit about that, and what your plan is? And can I convince you to use a mic?
I guess you all have a copy.
Yes.
Can anybody hear me all right? I don't really want to.
I just want to make sure it's recorded.
Yeah. Anytime anybody has anything or sees something, my number's on the webpage. That being said, this is what I identified as to be done this year. We had quite a bit of gravel the town roads last year because they're all very gravel deficient. I want to do some more of that this year. We got a good bargain on some pretty nice material. The road improvement project, I see prices going, and the lower West Shore Road, the lower part of the main road, terrible. If anybody's drove it, I'm sorry. I would like to see them prepped this year and paved next June. I think that works best, let new culverts and stuff go through a frost cycle. We can address any problems before we pave. I said at the beginning, when I started this road improvement program, that I would keep the cost at $500,000. I'm trying to get $500,000 worth of work done, but it's gonna cost us about $650 now. That's over 5 years. 5 years ago, I talked to $78 a ton, laid in place. Now we're looking at $130. That's a huge increase in 5 years. But I don't want to make that call. I want you people that are actually paying for it to tell me and direct me where to go. I don't want to wait another year because it could cost us another $50,000 to do the same amount of work. You know, I don't know what the answers are. So I'm looking for you people. Chuck, give me an answer. Something to think about. I'll be here Thursday night. But something to think about. And please, tell me what you think. Tell me what we should do. Because I don't want to make that call. It's not my call to make.
So again, you know, what we propose in warrant items, once they're written up, it could be that the town says, yes, we want this, but we don't want this year. Sort of like the wish list is Jim said. But to let you know that these are some of the issues that we're faced with, and as we put together some warrant items, we just want you to be aware of. And if you have feedback or comments,
Jeff? Can you hear us, Jeff?
The trouble is speaking, not hearing for me right now. Sorry. Can you hear me?
Do you want to just touch on what we discussed in terms of the roads and borrowing opportunity that we have?
You're asking me to talk about the
was it 450,000 that we have?
oh, the equity.
Yeah, I can't think of what it's called.
Yeah.
you mean we had a line of commitment last year, and we still have most of that remaining. That would be good through a year from July, I believe. And maybe better if Ashley could talk to us. It's difficult for me right now.
Okay. Well, just basically what that means is we're going to be looking into how it plays out if we just put it in the warrant, or if we spread it out over so many years. And
We have a line of credit that we already took out and we've already paid it back, so we still have the full 450,000 available. And we would have 2 years or 2 budget years to pay for it. So we could take out the full 450 to put towards the road, pay half of it back this year and half of it back next year. That's just one of the thoughts.
right.
Yeah, just
Part of the part of the importance of this is that it's still a low interest rate. So that's part of the benefit for us.
Yeah, and, you know, like everything else, if we do that, everything keeps going up in price, right? So if we put it off another year, it's not gonna be cheaper, you know, a year from now, unfortunately. So,
If this was the last phase, it may be different, but we still have phases to go, we're not done. And when we get done, it's gonna be time to start over again.
Yeah, road work is never done.
But I think we'll be starting from a better spot than we did initially. You know, the culverts and stuff should be fine for several paving cycles, which is a huge expense, you know. But when it comes to the money, that's certainly that.
Thanks, Jim. All right, any thoughts or questions or comments, before we adjourn? Remember, if you have questions, especially about the ordinances, contact Lisa, Select Board 3 at westportisland.gov. And if you have any other comments, I'm at 1, Jeff's at 2, or you can just hit Select Board and reach us. And we thank all of you for coming. If you don't want your pack of paper, just leave it. We'll use it Thursday. And if you wrote notes on it and you want to keep it, fine, we'll make new copies. So thank you very much.
thank you, everybody.
Lisa, Donna, great job.